A battery is a chess tactic wherein two pieces of the same color are on the same line, targeting an enemy piece or a certain square. Operating the battery generates a discovered attack by the rear piece of the battery, while the front piece may create another threat simultaneously. The rear piece can be any line mover, such as queen, rook, or bishop, while the front piece can be any piece but the queen. For example, in this position, both sides are about to promote. Can white do this in a more forcing way? Turns out he can. White plays queen into f6 check, a brilliant move. The point is, if you promote to queen on the first move, then he can take your queen, and after queen g8 check, knight g7, the black king is safe because white has no more checks. So as you can see, there are no more checks available. Both the knight and the queen are safeguarding its own king. So you cannot promote first. That is why we make use of another chess tactic, the decoy. I have already made a video about that, so do check it out. Queen into f6 decoys the black king to the f6 square, and since he has to take, we can now unleash the pawn. Thus, the bishop will give check to the king and we can successfully create a discover attack. E8 queen, the king is in check, he moves and we take his queen. White should be winning, but for those of you who want to see the end, black will obviously promote, but now white has a forced mating sequence and he will eventually mate the black king, as you can see. Now that you know what a battery is, we are going to solve 5 puzzles ranging from a difficulty ELO of 0, which is absolute beginner, to 2500, which is grandmaster level. Let's begin. Hey friends, my name is Ishan, and in today's video we are studying the tactical theme of battery. Coming up on the screen is the first puzzle for today, which has a difficulty rating of 0 to 500 ELO. And here it is. Why to play, pause the video and try to find the answer while I give you 5 seconds. Well, I hope you did find the answer. The correct answer is pretty obvious. We give rook e8 check, the king has to go to h7, and now knight g5 check. The problem is if you play knight f8 check, then he can play king g7, and if you take his knight, he can take your knight, and this should be a draw. That is why we play knight g5 check, with the idea of keeping the knight defended by the h4 pawn. He can play king h6, and now we take rook into e5. We are a full piece up and should win easily. I hope you solved that puzzle. Let's move on to puzzle number 2. So this puzzle has a difficulty rating of 500 to 1000 ELO. So still it should be easy, but not as easy as the last one. White to play, pause the video and try to find the answer while I give you a couple of seconds. Obviously if he doesn't take, we are threatening to be a full piece up. So he will have to accept our queen sacrifice when, as you can see, the pawn has moved away and the bishop is now indirectly aiming at the king with only white's knight in between. So now you had to find the correct square to move the knight, which is in fact knight c7 check. And after king b8, we can simply play knight a6 with check and mate. I hope you solved that. Let's move on to puzzle number 3. In this position, both white's rooks are attacked. How can white even hope of winning? Well, he can. White to play, pause the video and try to find the answer. Well, I hope you did find the answer. The correct move is the shocking rook into f7. The point is, if he takes the g5 rook, we can take his e7 rook, and as you can see, white will be 2 pawns up because after black takes king g4, we can also take rook b7, and this should be a winning endgame. If he takes rook into f7, which is the main move, then we can play rook g6 check. The king has only one move, which is h7, and now as you can see, the king is in the firing range of the bishop on e6, and we play rook d6 check, king g7, rook into d8, and again we are 2 pawns up, so this endgame should be winning easily. If after rook f7 you thought black could play rook e6, then the problem is after rook g7, black's king is in a bit of a trouble. So that doesn't work either. I hope you solved this. Let's move on to puzzle number 4. In this position, white needs to win black's bishop in order to have any hope of winning. White to play, pause the video and try to find the answer. The difficulty rating of this puzzle is 1500 to 2000 ELO. So it's really getting hard. I hope you found the answer. The correct move is b6. The point is, we need to sacrifice our remaining pawn to trap the black king. Obviously, if he doesn't take our pawn, we can play b7 and b8 queen. For example, if he plays bishop f4, then b7 and bishop a7 will secure the promotion of our pawn, or at least winning his bishop. So after b6, he has to take cb6, when now we can play bishop e1, setting up a deadly battery. Black's king cannot move anywhere, so his only hope is to move his bishop away. As you can see by the arrows I have drawn, white's threat is to play knight d5, which is a check and also attacking the bishop on g5, thus winning it. Black's best try here is to play bishop h6. If he plays something like bishop d8, then we can play knight e2 check, king g4, knight d4 check. And now the only place for the king is to go to c5, when after knight e6 check, we are completely winning because his bishop will hang. Only real move for him is to play bishop h6, when now after knight e2 check, king b5, knight d4 check, king c5, we play bishop f2. Again, we are setting up a battery and also threatening to play knight to c4, which will be a check as well as winning the bishop. So this is why black will have to play something, but wherever he moves his bishop, it is inevitably lost. Let's look at all the moves one by one. If he plays bishop c1, then we can play knight e2 check and the bishop is lost. If he plays king d6, then after knight f5 check, black's bishop is again lost. If he plays b5, then knight f5 check is again easily winning the bishop. If he plays the bishop to f8, then knight e6 check again wins the bishop. If he plays it to g7, knight f5 check or even knight e6 check wins the bishop. If he plays it to bishop g5, then knight f3 check wins the bishop. If he plays it to bishop f4, then again knight e6 or knight e2 both win the black bishop. And finally, if he goes to bishop d2, then knight f3 check wins the bishop and the game. I hope you solved this puzzle. Let's move on to puzzle number 5. This is puzzle number 5, guys, and the difficulty rating is 2000 to 2500 ELO. So this is a grandmaster level puzzle. It's white to play, pause the video and try to find the answer while I give you a couple of seconds. Well, I hope you did find the answer. The correct move is not at all easy. It is in fact rook d4. Many of us would have played queen a4 and agreed to a perpetual check because black is a piece up. But in fact, this silent killer is what we should play, because the threat is simply to play rook b4 and rook b6, which will be fatal. So black has to do something about it. He can't just allow us to do that. If he plays something like queen b8, then we can play queen a6 check. Wherever the king moves, we can play f4. And now when the black rook moves, his bishop on d5 will hang. So if he plays bishop a2 check with the idea of winning our rook on the next move, we can play king into a2. And now when he plays queen into d4, queen b6 check, king d7, c6. Again, unleashing the battery. When the king moves, we take the queen. In fact, this is also the theme which is going to be applicable for the main line. If he tries bishop e4 check, then we can take it, and after queen takes, queen b6, king d7, c6, and white wins the game. The tough part of this puzzle was finding the move rook d4, because not many of us would have considered anything apart from checks. Well, if you did solve this puzzle, I have one final challenge for you. Coming up on the screen is a bonus puzzle, which is probably even harder than Grandmaster level. And here it is. White to play, pause the video and try to find the answer. We will discuss the answer of this puzzle in the next video. Let's go to the answer of the bonus puzzle from the previous video, which was deflection. This was the position, and white's first move is pretty obvious. We play e7 with the idea of moving our bishop and promoting the pawn. Black has quite a few options. He can play either rook c7, which is easily met by bishop d7, or he can play bishop h4, which is in fact the main move. Now you will see many sacrifices of the white rook in order to let his bishop come out of e8 with a check. We play rook e1 check. Obviously, if you take the rook, then bishop c6, and once you take the bishop, we can promote successfully and win the game. So rook e1 is the first of many brilliant sacrifices. He has a lot of moves with his king. If he plays king d2, we can play rook e2 check, king into e2, bishop h5. Obviously, after rook e2, if he moves somewhere else, let's say king c3, then we can take and play bishop g6 and then promote the pawn. So that is why king d2 doesn't work. If he plays king d4, then again rook e4 and king c5 and we win the bishop. If he takes the rook, obviously there is a check on g6. So that doesn't work. If he plays king f4, then again we can play rook e4, king g3, rook g4. And now after king s3, which is the only move to save the bishop, we can play bishop d7, again setting up a deadly battery. So as you can see, a good tactic is a combination of many themes. He will have to take the pawn as we were threatening promotion, but now we can win the rook and the game. So the only option left for black is to play king f2. If he goes here, then we can play rook f1 check, with the idea that if he moves his king to g3, then rook f3 check, king g2, bishop c6. Again, another deadly battery. And now we can win the rook. If he goes to king e3, then we play rook f3 check, king d2, rook f2 check. And now finally, black cannot ignore the sacrificed rook, because once he moves his king, we can take the rook on c2, he takes back, and we give a check on g6 and promote. So we'll have to take, and now we play bishop d7, and there is no way for black to stop the promotion on e8. That's it for today, guys. Please make sure to like and subscribe. If you haven't already, do check out my other videos where I have covered different tactical themes. Till then, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.